Hello and welcome to Clay Creators. Today's model is our Key Stage 1 Pyramid and Sphinx, which hopefully will look like this towards the end. For the build, we will need our measuring spoons, our creator cards and tools. We'll need our pots of clay and, if possible, an airtight container, maybe a Tupperware or lunchbox if you don't have anything specific like we do. Before we get started though, before we get onto the build, I'm going to go over the key facts for the Pyramid and the Sphinx. Please have a listen, please take it on board just in case Mum and Dad decide to throw out a little quiz and a test for you later on. I know I learned a few things from these facts, so I found it very interesting, so please take it on board, okay? Fact number one then. It's the largest monolith statue in the world, which means it's the largest one block statue. So it's basically one piece of material, and from that they sculptured and shaped it. Okay, it's 241 feet long, which is basically the same kind of length as 6 double-decker buses being parked back to back. Okay, so that's the size of the Sphinx. Okay, fact number two: the word Sphinx was used by the Greeks first when they named a fabulous creature which had a head of a woman, body of a lion, and the wings of a bird, which is where Sphinx name comes from. Okay. Fact number three: the Sphinx has been a symbol of Egypt from ancient times through to present day. So you hear of Egypt and the Sphinx, you put them together, and that's basically how it works. Okay. Fact number four: it's estimated, because it can't be 100%, we can't be 100% sure. It took over 23 years to build the pyramids. Okay. Fact number five: the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is mainly the big one, the largest pyramid that you see a lot, it was at one point the tallest man-made structure in the world. Okay, so it was 146 meters high. Okay, so at one point that was the tallest man-made structure until the Eiffel Tower was built, which then took over that title. Okay. Fact number six: you'll find most of the pyramids in Egypt on the western side of the river. Okay, so the big river in Egypt, which is the longest river in the world, is called the Nile. So most of those pyramids are found on the western side, which is in the Valley of the Kings. Okay, and this was basically just because it was easier to transport all the building materials up the river or down the river, whichever way it works, just so it was easier for that transport. So that's why they were all built on the western side. Okay. Fact number seven: Egypt has around about 138 pyramids. Okay, so all dotted around, 138, but there is a good chance we may find more in the future. Okay, and finally, fact number eight: the pyramids are known as one of the 7 wonders of the world. Okay, onto the build itself. Now we're going to start with the Sphinx and then move on to the pyramid after that, but we're going to need the same color for pretty much everything here. So we're going to mix the sandy color to start off with, and for that mix we're going to use our measuring spoons predominantly. So we're going to start off with yellow, which is our main color, and we're going to fill up our number 5 spoon 3 times. So we're going to use a good chunk of yellow here. So number 5 spoon. Remember, when you're measuring with your measuring spoons, a filled spoon should be pretty much level across the top, not overhanging too much. So I've got 1, oops, 2, 3. The rest of your clay needs to go away in your pot. Keep it nice and fresh. So I've got my yellow measurement. I'll just pop that to the side. And then we're moving on to red. And our red is going to be a number 3 spoon and a number 1 spoon. So my number 3 spoon. Nice and level again. Number 3 and a number 1. Okay, moving on to blue now, and our blue is going to be, our number 2 spoon. So again, once you're finished with your red, lid on, put it away. So yeah, a number 2 spoon of blue this time. And then finally we're going to use our white clay. Lid on again, out of the way. This time we're going to use number 2 spoon again. And we're going to fill up number 2 spoon twice with the white clay. 1 and 2. You see, as you can see, we've got a lot of clay here, so we've got quite a big mix. If we put all those together and give them a good mix, now we'll get our sandy colour. So obviously we're going to use some to start off with straight away to build the Sphinx. We're going to save some, put that in an airtight container ready for later once we get onto the pyramid. So if you give this a good mix, get all those colours to blend, we should get a nice sandy colour. Very good. So we're looking for a nice sandy colour, looks something like this. Okay. So like I said, we're going to start with the body of the Sphinx, and we're going to use our spoons, and we're going to measure out a number 4, a number 5, and then we'll move on to the card. But I'll move on to that first. So let's start with a number 4 and a number 5 of your measuring spoons. So again, remember to try and keep it nice and level on the top of your spoons. Four and a number 5, so I've got my 5. Oops. And then we're going to move over onto our creator card. Now the final measurement for the body, like I say, is going to be a number 1 centimeter ball. So we're going to use the card, we're going to go for the 1 centimeter, and when you snap a bit of clay off, you need to remember to put it into a ball. So you roll it into a little ball and place it on that 1 centimeter, and you need to make sure you still can see the outline of that 1 centimeter. Okay. So I've got that, I'm going to put that together. I'm going to put the rest of my clay away in my airtight container for the time being. And we're just going to shape our body. So let's give it another quick stretch, freshen the clay up. Now I'm going to roll this into a nice smooth ball for my starting shape. Now I'm going to use my hands. You may want to use your workstation. Just find out what's best for you to get a nice smooth starting position. I've got my nice smooth ball. All I'm going to do, I'm going to roll this out into a little sausage slightly. It's going to be roughly 7 centimeters. Now it's going to get slightly longer as we do what we're going to do. So as I'm going to roll this, I don't want to roll it too far. So I'm going to roll it, I'm going to say 6 to 7 centimeters because it's going to get a little bit bigger. So if I use my ruler on the back of my card just to double check, and I'm at 6.5 right now, which is pretty much where I'm looking for. It doesn't have to be exact, it's okay, it's not a problem. So I've rolled it into a sausage, and all I'm going to do with this is I'm going to gently use my fingers to pinch along the top, and at the same time kind of push down slightly, because what we want the top, when you look on the top of your body, you want it to be narrower or thinner at the top than at the bottom. So as I'm going to go down, I'm going to gently press my hands, pinch across the top. It's kind of giving it a point, and as I'm pushing down slightly, it becomes a little bit flatter on the bottom. Kind of gives it a triangle-y kind of shape. Okay, so if I bring this up to the camera, I've not gone overboard, I'm not pressing crazily. If I can bring this to the camera, so I've kind of got flat sides, but the bottom is going to be flat because it's against the workstation. All I'm going to do then at the front, so I'm going to class this as the front, I'm going to give it a little push and kind of have it at an angle so it's kind of facing, it's kind of leaning. That's where the front is, and the head will sit at the top here. Okay, so once we've got that shape, I'm going to put a little detail on there. Now, detail, it's up to you how much you want to do. The Sphinx is very old, obviously, so the brickwork is kind of deteriorating, it's damaged. So it's how you want to do this. Now, normally all I'll do, I'm going to put some lines in here. I'm kind of mark it a little bit. It's not too much of a problem if it's slightly damaged. So is to try and make it look weird. So I'm going to put some lines down the side, across the top. I'm going to just press gently. It doesn't, like I say, these bits don't have to be perfect. It's not a problem. Like I say, it's a little bit of damage technically. If you want your parents, if you don't quite get how I'm explaining that, if you ask who's guiding you today to maybe help. So I'm just taking my tool and I'm gently scoring and lining across everywhere. So if I bring it to the camera, you might be able to see I've not gone too detailed, just a little bit of damage. And again, I'm going to place back down. Okay. We're going to move on to the front legs now. So we're going to put the legs on at the front. We're going to have them bringing forward. It's a couple of little paws. So if we get our clay again, and we're going to use our creator card again to measure. Okay, so we're going to use our 2 centimeter ball this time, and we're going to do this twice. So we need 2 of these. Now the measurement here could do with probably being a little bit smaller. So normally if you went all the way up and you could just about see the outside of the 2 centimeter circle, take a touch more off so you can see a bit more of the circle. But the idea is to get them pretty much the same size. So we've got 2 of the same size paw. Doesn't have to be exact. If they're slightly off, don't worry too much. I'm pretty happy with that. So I've got 2 measurements pretty much the same. Clay away again into your airtight container. And what we're going to do with these, we're going to turn them into, let's say, little paws. But again, start off with our starting position. Try and make them nice and smooth. And all we're going to do is we're going to roll these out into little sausages. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is add gentle pressure, nothing too much, to try and get it nice and even along the sausage. Okay. Don't worry if you get a little lump and bump, we can start again, roll it back into a ball, start again. And you need to get both of them pretty much the same size. Now again, it doesn't matter if yours is slightly shorter, slightly longer than what I've done. We like to go for roughly 4 centimeters, which is roughly that big. Again, if yours is slightly shorter, slightly longer, it's not a problem, as long as both of your legs are pretty much the same length. Fantastic. Now what we're going to do, we want to stick them onto underneath the body, but we don't want the body to lift up too much. So at one end of your legs, all we're going to do is gently press down and give it a flat end. And basically the body will sit on these bits. So if I bring one to the camera, you can see that I've just flattened one end, and the same with the other one. So again, the body will sit on these bits and face forward. Okay, so before we put them on, just very quickly, at one end, so the opposite end of the end that we've, opposite end of where we've just flattened, I'm going to put like basically a couple of lines in as if it's his paw. Same on the other one, and we're going to carry on with the kind of the damaged look on the body momentarily. If we then can put the legs on, so remember the bit that we put at the front, we kind of leaned it back a little bit, that's going to be the front, and I'm just going to put the legs on those flat bits. Now once it goes on there, you can kind of give it a little mold, a little push, and press against the body. Try not to press down too much. Change the shape. And like I said, if you want to carry on, so the lines that we did on the body, I'm going to do the same sort of effect on his legs. Just a few scores, a few marks. Try and make it look a little bit damaged. Now remember, his legs are meant to be the same length. Okay, so I've got them on, I'm happy with that. I'll pick it up. So underneath it should look roughly like that, how it's connected. And then from the top we should be looking at the front. Okay. I'm going to put that in the airtight container while we work on his head, or her head. Nice and flat. Okay, so the head measurement, we are going to use our spoons again, and we're going to fill up a number 3 spoon. Remember, I threw them on the floor. Number 3 spoon. Okay, and whilst we're here, we will measure out the mane as well. Okay, and the mane, we go back to the card and we fill up our 2 centimeter ball again. This time it needs to be a proper measurement, so not a small one. I'm pretty close to being that 2 centimeter. Remember, you need to still see the outline, but this time it's closer to the edges this time. Okay. Now these 2 measurements are similar, so I'm going to just keep them separate for the time being. I know this one over here is for the mane. I'm going to put the rest of my clay back into my airtight container and try and make sure it doesn't touch the rest of the model. Don't want it sticking. Okay, so the head, we need to give it a stretch, get it back to the normal starting shape, which is a nice smooth round ball. Again, work the way that you find best to get that effect. Now the head can be a little bit tricky. You may need to do this more than once, okay? Because as you're working with the mane, you may squish the head slightly. Now again, with the Sphinx being an old, damaged kind of brickwork effect, the face isn't we don't do too much with the face. You may want to change your design slightly. What we're going to do are very simple. It's basically kind of a little dent for eyes and a tiny little nose, but it's very hard to kind of get the damaged effect that we've done on the body onto the face as well. So we do that very minimal. If you want to add making more of a cartoony kind of face, it's fine. If you want to put some white eyes on, it's your choice. You can do that at the end. But for our version, all we're going to do, we roll that into a ball, and all we're going to do is leave it on the table and kind of press down gently to give it kind of a flat back. Not too much, we don't want it to be really, really flat. It's just to help when the mane goes on, because the mane is going to go round the head and kind of fasten on at the back and come down the sides, okay? So if I can show you on the actual other model, see the shape is going to be quite tricky to get. So what we do, we kind of mold it over the top and loop it round and then shape it again once it's onto the head. And like I say, on the face, very simple, just a little bit. So again, you can change that and add to that later on if you need to. Okay, so back to the head. Like I say, not too much work on there, so we're just going to leave that to the side. If you want to get the eyes on there now, if you're confident you're going to be able to get that in the right place, and a little mouth, just take your tool, give it a little mouth, and again, it's up to you whether you want to make smiling, unhappy, it's up to you. I'm going to kind of just give it a mouth, and with the eyes, like I say, we're just taking my tool, and I'm just going to put a couple of dents where the eyes would be. And if you, at this point, are happy to put a nose on, can do. I will generally leave it until afterwards, once we've kind of put the mane on, so I know I'm not going to squash it with my hand as I'm working with my mane. So my head can stay that way, keep the face side up, and the mane we're going to go on. Now this bit may be a little bit tricky. You might need a little help, or you might need to try it a couple of times to kind of get the effect that we're looking for. So again, give it a stretch out, freshen it up, roll it into a ball. Now what we do, we kind of roll this out a little bit into a sausage, and then we flatten the middle. Okay, so we want the outsides to kind of still have some clay to it, but on the middle it's kind of flatter. So I've started my ball, I'm going to roll this out. And we're only going to roll this out short into a short sausage. Again, try and keep it even though. So roughly, there we go. Okay, so I've got it nice and even, and we're looking for roughly anywhere between 2.5 3 centimeters. Again, it will change as we start to work on it in a moment. Okay, so I've got my even, and all we're going to do is kind of press down in the middle. Okay, so this is going to give you that flatter bit in the middle and the looped bits on the outside where it's going to be a little bit more clay. So if I bring that to the camera now, see I'm pressing in the middle and it's giving me the outer bits. So same again, keep going. We need that pretty thin, and then you can stretch it out a little bit. So like I said, this might take a couple of attempts to kind of get where you need to be. So don't panic if you don't get it first time. So again, I've carried on doing that, and I've carried on pressing. I've now got quite thin because it falls down with my two larger bits on the outside. Now, the bit that I've got closest to you, I'm going to class as the top, and it's going to go across the top of the head. So I'm going to just try and keep that bit across the top a little flatter. And if you can imagine, the bits that are raised up on the side, we're kind of going to make them flat, kind of a triangle sort of shape. But I find it's best that we kind of shape that once it's on the head. Okay. So if you can imagine, I'm going to put the lines in now so you can see which bit that is, but again you might need to do that once we've got it on. So if I bring this bit to you, hopefully that will make sense as to how that's going to work. So the head's going to go in the flatter bit in the middle, and then we'll shape these bits around the outside. Okay. Again, don't panic if yours isn't looking exactly the same right now. You can mold it and shape it a little bit once it's on the head. So I'm going to take my head and I'm going to put that kind of in the middle towards the top. And remember, I need to bring my mane over the top slightly. So the process I've got at the moment, it's stuck to the top of the head. And then I'm going to bring the mane round a little bit. Try not to squish the head too much or change the shape of the head. Just let that kind of mold together. Like I say, the mane we're going to sort out shortly, so don't worry too much how that's gone, as long as it's kind of gone on there. Once it's on the head, we've got it in the right place, and we're going to be able to then, once it's on the body, we'll be able to mold it around slightly. So I'm going to get the body now, and I'm going to put the head on. And then I'm going to just bring the mane round the bottom of the neck of the head and kind of hold it in place. Make sure it's in the right place. And once it's in the right place, then I can shape those bigger bits around the side to make them into those triangle kind of shapes. So I've got that on, flatten it out slightly. The head's secure now, so this is the stage that I'm at the moment. So we're on, oops, connected, and now I'm just going to shape it a little bit now. Try and make that look more like the mane. Just give it a little pinch, and then what I do from the sides, I'll pinch both sides and turn it into more of a square shape, pointy triangle kind of shape. And then once I've got that where I need it, I will then put in those lines again that I put in before. Okay, so I'm looking at this sort of shape now. And like I say, I'm going to put that decoration shape in now with my tool. And this is also the point, if you didn't do it before, I'm going to then put my nose on. So again, I'm going to give it a little press down to the face. Clay will have started to dry out now, so you won't be able to get as much detail, but that's really what we're looking for. We're trying not to get too much detail on it. Like I said before, when I mentioned before that it's an old model with damage, you're not going to be able to put too much on, so I'm happy with that. So just take a little tiny pinch of the sand clay, and when I say tiny, I'm looking at probably even smaller than a 0.5, so it gets very fiddly. So the smallest measurement on your creator card will probably be too big a nose. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut that in half. Like I say, it gets very fiddly, but the nose itself is just very, very small and tiny. And it's kind of like a triangle. So all I'm going to do is put that on on there, give it a little press down. But again, for the damaged nose, I'm going to take my tool and I'm just going to kind of give it a little squash. Let's say it's more about imperfection than being perfect. So I've just damaged that slightly by, again, carrying on with the little lines that we'd have done before. So my Sphinx is kind of finished now. Again, if you want to change your little design with the face and kind of make it a little bit more cartoony, more than welcome to try something on your own. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave that there. We're going to move on to the pyramid. Now the pyramid is kind of quite repetitive. And what I mean is you're going to do the same shape over and over again, but we're going to gradually make it smaller and smaller to give us this pointy pyramid shape. Okay, so we're going to do the same shape. We're going to be trying to make it as square as possible. So if I turn it this way, it's kind of square, and we're going to gradually use less and less clay to make it into a point at the very top where it gets very, very fiddly. But again, you may need a little help, but we're going to work our way along doing this now. Okay, so the first measurement from this clay, I'm just going to freshen it up a little bit. I'm going to go back to our spoons. We're going to fill up a number 4 spoon. Okay, so number 4 spoon, which is going to be our biggest, our base part of the pyramid. Now I'm going to give you measurements which kind of guide you, but as you're working away along on here, it might be that you want to kind of, you might take a little bit less, you might do things a little bit smaller. It's absolutely fine. It's more with the pyramid, it's how you can kind of get yours to fit itself, which will make sense as we go in. So I'll put the rest of the clay away just for now while we get started on this first one. I'm going to give it a quick freshen up, and I'm going to go back to my starting position, which is that nice smooth round ball. Now there are different ways of kind of making these square. It's up to you how you're going to, it's what you find works best for you. Like I said, we're going to try and make it as square as possible. We're going to need our ruler on our creator card to give you that starting measurement or size. Now what I generally do, I kind of get a square using my hands. But what I'm going to do today, I'm going to just bring it down flat. So all I'm going to do is going to press it down, because as we work our way up the pyramid, we try and keep it the same thickness on each step. So you'll kind of get used to that as you do a couple of them. You'll figure it out. Now I'm just going to flip it over because my work surface or my workstation is going to give me a nice flat surface. Okay, so I've just pressed it down, and eventually I've kind of got a little oval. That's kind of the depth we're looking for. It's that thick. But at the moment it's an oval shape, so I need to square this up. So I'm going to take my tool and I'm just going to press against the side. Okay, so I've now got one flat side. I'm going to do that for them all, whilst using my other hand to keep pressing down so the clay doesn't change too much. And I'm just going to keep flipping it over, let the work surface or station give me that flat surface as I'm using my tool. So you eventually end up with kind of a square shape. So I've kind of got, okay, now that I've got that shape, we now need to worry about excuse me, the size of it. Okay, so the first measurement, we need one side, basically a square, it needs to have 4 sides the same, and we're looking to try and reach the 4 centimeter, which is going to give you that big square one. So if you've not quite at 4 centimeters, it means your clay's too thick. So I'm going to start pressing down a little bit more, flatten it out a little. But again, now that I've flattened it out, I'm going to need to flatten the edges again. So I'm going to then use my tool again. And it's a little bit of trial and error. If you don't get it quite right, pause the video, start again, roll it back into a ball. And if you aren't quite at 4 centimeters, it's not a problem, because the next model, measurement that we're going to do will just have to be slightly shorter than 3.5, and so on. We'll work our way along. So right now I'm literally 3.9-ish centimeters, so I'm quite happy with that. I'm happy with the depth, and I've got a nice flat square. So that's going to be my base. I'm going to just leave that on the table, and we're going to just keep adding onto the top. Okay, so the next measurement, we're going to go back to our spoons, we're going to grab our sand clay again, and we're going to fill up a number 3 and a number 2 spoon. Oops. and the 2. The 3. So again, rest of your clay away just for the time being. So we're going to do the same as we did before for the base, but again, with it being less clay, it's going to gradually get smaller and smaller. So you're trying to get the same sort of depth-ish as you work along. And again, you'll get better at this as you work your way up the pyramid. So again, I'm going to just quickly kind of give myself the shape I'm looking for. So I've started my smooth round ball. I've just squished it a little bit there. So I'm going to carry on squishing down on the table or workstation, giving you that nice flatness. So now you can see the sort of depth that you need from the first one that you've done. So that base is your starting point, your guide. So I know at the moment I need to keep pressing this one down a little bit more before I get my tool to flatten up the sides. Now again, we are going to aim for around about 3.5 centimeters on your creator card, but this is where I was mentioning before, you don't necessarily have to go by these measurements. Now if I pick this up and put it over the top of my other one, I can see that one side's slightly off, but you want it to gradually just get smaller all the way along and have the same shape as the, the piece below. So I'm happy with that. I'm not quite 3.5 centimeters, so I'm going to press that down a little bit. Like I say, these measurements now are just kind of guides. Depending on how you've shaped yours, yours might be off slightly. So I'm going to gently put that over the top. And all the way around the outside, just a quick check, the one on the top is smaller. Okay, so as long as you can still see a rim around the outside of the bigger piece, if I pick that up to you, so you should see all the way around that there is a bit showing. If there isn't, you just give it a little squish. I've squashed that as I picked up for the camera. So again, as we're working along, you can keep using your tools to shape your pyramid as we're going to go up. Okay, on to the next one. And the next one is going to be a number 3 spoon. So again, like I say, it's a little bit repetitive, same thing, but you have to keep paying attention to make sure you keep getting smaller so you get the proper pyramid effect. So a number 3 spoon. And again, the rest of your clay in your pot to keep it fresh. And the number 3, we're going to do the same effect again. So starting point is a nice smooth round ball. This time we're going to look for the 2.5 centimeter length ish, again depending on your pyramid. So I'm going to squish that down a little bit more, use my tool. Okay. And then on to the next. Okay. So like I say, try and keep them as square as possible, as much as you can. It gives it a better effect. Get in the clay again. We are now going to jump onto our creator card. And we're going to go for a 2 centimeter circle this time. So snap off, roll into a ball, and fit in that 2 centimeter. Fantastic. And once again, back to the same sort of effect. Smooth ball into a flat square. This time, using your card, we're looking for around about 2.5. I think I've missed one. The last one should have been 3 centimeters. I think we're at 2.5 centimeters now. But again, it's all about what your pyramid is saying, as in size as you work along. Everybody's going to be doing this slightly different. Okay, so we should be getting this effect now. There we go. Okay, next measurement is a is a combination between the spoons and the card. So whilst we're using our card, we're going to go onto the 1 centimeter circle this time. So a little 1 centimeter ball. And we're also using our spoons, so we're going to use filling up a number 1 spoon as well. Put them together. Now by this point you might not be really following the length that I was about to say, so we're looking for around about 2 centimeters, but like I say, you may be off that measurement by now, depending on how your pyramid's kind of going. So again, back down to your flat square. Okay. And then onto our next one. Just a 1 centimeter ball this time. Okay. Let's say we're gradually getting smaller and smaller. It becomes a little bit fiddlier, a little bit trickier. So at the very top, you may need a little help, depending on how detailed you want this. Okay. Okay. Next one. This is kind of a little bit of a feel now. It's when I say a feel, it's a little bit more. So we've just done a 1 centimeter. Now we don't want to go as small as 0.5, but we don't want to be as big as 1 centimeter. So again, using your creator card, I've taken a little bit off, and I'm going to just make. I'm going to use the 1 centimeter ball as a measurement, but I'm going to take a little bit off. And just go down. I probably want a good half. So I want to be able to see a good outline of that. So I'm going to be a small 1 centimeter ball. Hope that makes sense. But again, it's kind of feel. So we've used a full 1 centimeter. I'm going to do a smaller one. I'm going to say it's going to get fiddlier and fiddlier. Still try and make it as square as possible. Okay, and then pop that on top. We're always trying to try and make it in the middle, so you get the proper triangle kind of effect. Okay. And we've got 2 little measurements left. So we're going to go for a 0.5 this time. Tiny 0.5 one. And then finally, after that would be a tiny, tiny little pinch. So we've got a 0.5. And again, I'm going to try and turn that into a square. It's very, very tricky at this point. I sometimes will use my finger on one side and squish it with my tool. So I've got my nail, giving it as flat as possible, and my tool on the other side, a little press down, keep turning it, and then we've got to be careful to get it up on the top. There we go. A little squish down. And then finally, to give it that very point at the top, I mean, you might be happy leaving it there if it's getting too tricky. I'm going to take a tiny, tiny pinch, smaller than that 0.5, and I'm going to try, you've got leftover clay by the way, so you can use this in free play at the end. Keep that nice fresh. So I'm going to take this tiny, tiny one and I'm going to try and point it to fit on the top here. And by giving it, now you know the shape that you've got, so all I'm going to try and do is kind of pinch it at the top to give it a really, really pointy. So, and then I'm going to go from the other side as well to try and give it that point. It might be better once I've got it on. So I've got a tiny, tiny one. I'm going to put it on at the top in the middle. I'm going to point, so I'm going to press on each side, keeping it pointy at the very top. And then hopefully we get that effect all the way down. If you need to give it a little press, so hopefully you've got this kind of effect working your way down and that look all the way along. Okay. Like I say, if you don't get quite right, start off with it, or as you're going along you're not 100% happy with it, just start again. The clay is all the same color, so you can just quickly mix again, freshen it all up and go from there. Okay, so that is our two models built. Hopefully you've got the same sort of effect and the same sort of look. It's that time for the free play. Okay, so you can use that spare clay if you want to maybe add to the Sphinx, if you've got enough there left to maybe do some legs and the tail. It's your choice. You can use that alongside if you want. Other than that, you also normally use a number 3 spoon of every color for free play. If you want to mix more sandy color, you kind of have to get the same colors that we did, but get the right ratios. It's up to you what you want to do. It's free play time, like I say, 5 number 3 spoons. If you think you're ready to move up and try using the Key Stage 2 model plans, we would use scales instead of the spoons to measure out a clay. And if you don't have any scales ready to go, you can get hold of them from our shop. Same place if you are short of clay and you need a restock of clay. And again, it's the same place to download the activity sheets, crosswords, task sheets and things like that. All at the same place. I say head over to claycreators.com/shop. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.